On today's show, we've made it to the top of the mountain, the franchise tier in our 2024 organizational value rankings.
By now, all of you have figured out who the top three are, but the question is, what order are they in?
Let's get into that right now on a Saturday, Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube, where a like, comment, subscription go a long way to helping the show grow, especially as we get into the week of the home opener and the regular season. Today is Saturday, October 5th, and Pilsy, this is giving me pandemic flashbacks where you and I are doing 6 shows a week.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can tell we're just ready for hockey, and when we're doing 6 episodes a week, we're fired up for hockey. And as much as the preseason has been fun, Ross, I'm kind of sick of the gong shows that have been happening, so we can just get through this last preseason game so we can get to the real thing on Thursday.
Wave goodbye to preseason like Jan Yannick waving to the Red Wings bench last night. How hilarious was that?
That was all time. I'm a Jan Yannick guy. That's easy to say.
I tweeted out, I said he's looking for a Rat Pack membership to join Nick Cousins, David Perron, Ridley Gregg, and Brady Tkachuk. It's an exclusive club.
Hey, Ross, some teams, they struggle to find an identity or a culture. The Ottawa Senators said, hey, we've got top-end talent, but we're also going to be absolute sewer rats when we need to be or when we want to be. And that's fun to watch as a Sens fan, so I'm all in.
It's also fun watching 3 goals on 4 shots. The Ottawa Senators felt down and out in that preseason game last night. All of a sudden, Alex Lyon forgot he turned into a house cat in a moment's notice. It was outrageous. And Noah Gregor scores the OT winner. I thought he's had a strong ending of camp after starting slow. And we're ready. By the way, Senators are the funniest organization in the league. Yesterday morning, Marty St. Louis says that, hey, Kent Hughes, the Habs GM, should call Steve Staios to see what his intentions are in the final preseason game. Like, need we remind Marty St. Louis that in Montreal, he dressed his B squad and the Senators brought all their top-end talent, and 3 of them left with injuries? So don't give me that. Like, no team plays the victim card more than the Montreal Canadiens. It's always against them. It's outrageous. But the Senators then, after last night's game, for the first time this preseason, the group that's playing will not skate. So at 4:30, we'll find out the lineup, and Marty St. Louis is going to have to decide who he's bringing to Ottawa before then.
I love it. That's how it should be. Like, if you want to play that way, if you want to play the poor us, we're victims, maybe let's call the parents before the sleepover so that we know everything's going to be all good.
Healthy snacks, right?
Yeah, healthy snacks. They're going to bed on time and no roughhousing.
None at all. All right, Pilsy. Now we should get to the meat on the bone. There's a ton of it today because, look, I'm very much on the Tim Stützle side of things. I think that the elite talent is something that the Ottawa Senators, you could already argue in terms of pure raw talent, Tim Stützle might be already top 5 in Sens history in terms of the highlight reel moves and just the overall skill. It'd be like Spezza, Carlson. Like, I'm already starting to slow down. Hossa Havlat, like Alfie was smart, hard work, dedication, and like he had great talent, but I don't think like Tim Stützle's natural ability. Right? Alfie's a 6th-round pick. He played the game like a 4th-line grinder. He just had that extra touch around the net and could tickle the twine on his slap shot on the power play. I don't think that's disrespectful to Alfie at all. I just think I think Havlat in terms of like naturally gifted, like they fly out there. You know what I mean? I just think maybe dynamic would be the word because Alfie was cerebral. He was a thinker out there, more like Claude Giroux, whereas like Timmy can turn the game on his head just in the moment's notice with his speed and his dynamic ability. But then Jake Sanderson is Mr. Perfect. The guy took 9 minor penalties in over 1,000 minutes last year. He's elite at both ends of the ice, and now he's a double-digit goal scorer. So how did you handicap whether or not it was going to be Timmy or Jake Sanderson at number 2 or Brady Tkachuk? But I don't think it's any secret the way that he's the leader, the captain. Oh, yeah, and he's just recently been on Locked On Senators that he's going to stay at number 1. No spoilers.
Yeah. So the question is, who's number 2 between Jake Sanderson and Tim Stützle? You asked, how did I differentiate between the two and what gave the edge to a certain player? And for me, Ross, that's consistency. Tim Stützle's highest highs are more impressive than Jake Sanderson's, but Tim Stützle's lowest lows are much more lower than Jake Sanderson, whereas Jake Sanderson is consistently a great defenseman. Is he going to show up on the TSN top 10 highlight reel? Probably not, but go talk to anyone in the hockey world that is really paying attention, especially talk to defensemen, former defensemen, current defensemen, coaches that coach on the defensive side of the game. And Jake Sanderson is one of the top guys in the league. And when you look at a guy that skates as well as Jake Sanderson, he's got that Niedermeyer-esque ability to him, doesn't break a sweat. For me, Ross, it was the fact that with Jake Sanderson, night in and night out, you're going to get a nice, smooth performance, and he's a number 1 defenseman. Whereas Tim Stützle, one night, you might get what was the word you used? Dynamism.
Dynamism.
You might get that one night.
You want a definition of it?
Hit me.
The quality of being characterized by vigorous activity and progress.
Okay. But like Tim Stützle can show those superstar flashes of skill, and then another night he's trying to do too much. He's turning the puck over at the neutral zone when he's trying to deke through 4 different guys, or he's doing a spinorama in his own zone around no one and loses the puck. And it's like, Timmy, what are we doing here? But that's the thing, Ross, is with having a number 1 defenseman that's going to be consistent like Jake Sanderson, for me, is more valuable than the number 1 centerman that one night might be your best player and another night might be a liability.
In terms of the franchise history, though, what Tim Stützle did, not this past season, but the year before, is outrageous. The 6th most points in a single season by a Senator ever. Yeah. And he did it at 21 years old. The only ones higher. Heatley had 105 in 06-07. Alfie had 103 in 05-06. Heatley had 103 in 05-06. Alexei Yashin had 94 in 98-99. And Spezza had 92 in 07-08. Like, those are the only players in franchise history. I just named four captains and Danny Heatley.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And don't get it twisted. This is not me putting Tim Stützle down. I'm a Tim Stützle guy. I'm the Umlaut creator. I love Tim Stützle. However, it's more me raising awareness, a public service announcement, raising awareness that Jake Sanderson is it's just such a breath of relief to know you have a number 1 defenseman that's going to play great night in and night out.
So we always say on this show, we're a show for fans,
by fans.
So when we disagree, we put it to a poll on Twitter at Sens Central, and Jake Sanderson's slight edge, and it was going to be a close poll. It always was going to. You can still have your say at Sens Central. A lot of great replies. One person posted the meme. I don't know if it's from The Wire or what, but where he's like raising the gun like he has to shoot his friend. And he's like crying at the same time. It's like, this is how I feel about you making me choose between these two guys. Yeah, but Jake Sanderson gets 56% of the initial votes, 450. So a good sample size so far. And I think we just have to get into Tim Stützle then. Coming in at number 3 on our organizational value rankings, it's Timmy Superstar. I almost feel bad that he's at number 3, but you certainly can't overlook the fact that he had 1 power play goal last year, 18 total goals, and that chilly plus minus the 17 under is standing out like a sore thumb, albeit not the be-all, end-all. There's certainly other elements of your game that you look at, and I think that we could see a revenge season, and I think he could be right in the mix at number 2 or even number 1 next year.
Yeah, and I'm not discrediting that. That's for sure. I'm not putting down Tim Stützle's talent, his skill, his ability. Not at all. I believe in this kid. And it's going to take time, right? Like this is the kind of thing where he's had a lot of responsibility put on him. Recently, the number one centerman of this team, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be highs and lows, and he was dealing with that wrist injury last season. We all know that now. We understand that. I don't want to say it's an excuse for the performance, but it's more of a reason why.
Makes sense when you drop 21 goals.
Exactly. Like if he can't shoot the puck confidently, you're going to have a hard time scoring goals in the National Hockey League. That's just how it goes. I fully believe that Tim Stützle is going to be a consistent 30 goal scorer in the NHL. It would shock me if he doesn't get back to 30 goals this season, especially Ross, if they keep that line in stone. Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, and Claude Giroux. Oh my God, that's a great top line. So, yeah, did we already read his stats?
I'll hit you with he's 6 foot tall, 190 pounds. He's still just 22 years old. Think about that for a second. He's 22 years old. And if you look at the career leaders in Ottawa Senators, he's climbing up some lists like rather quickly. So we're looking forward to another season and then 6 more after that on his current contract. He's got 7 years left at $8.35 million. We mentioned the 18 goals. He did, though, have 70 points in 75 games. Why don't you let the people know where he's been over the last 5 organizational value rankings?
So the third overall pick in the 2020 draft started out number 3 in our OVR, then number 2 again, number 2 again, and now he's back at number 3. So, I mean, like that's just the thing, Ross. Like we're debating this, but like we're debating whether he's going to be the second best player on this team or the third best. Like there's no room.
Tier.
This is the tier. Like these, well, I was about to say these 3 are going to be 1, 2, and 3 for the remainder of their career, but there is a certain player that might sneak in there at one point. But for the foreseeable future,
are you trying to make me yak right now?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. Or like, I don't even, maybe
Linus?
That's pushing it. I was going to say, I don't even think it's that crazy that Linus could get in the mix in this tier as well.
Hey, put your name on the Vezina again this year. We'll talk.
Yeah. But he's an elite talent, and I think he's only going to get better. Like you mentioned, Ross, 22 years old. I think a lot of the time we put a lot of pressure on Timmy, but he's not like, he's entering his prime stage, right? Like I feel like for a centerman, your prime is probably going to be 24 to 28. Is that fair to say?
Unless you're Giroux, then it's still 36.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this kid's got a long way to go, and for him to be where he is already is amazing.
Tim Stützle, 7th all-time in Sens history in points per game, behind names like Claude Giroux, Matt Duchene, Daniel Alfredson, Alexei Yashin, Jason Spezza, and Danny Heatley. Tim Stützle, a long career ahead, and we need to see this guy in the playoffs. Just getting he should almost be a member of the Rat Pack too, by the way. The way he gets under team skin, that smile. Look at the photo. Like, if you're another team, I think he might be the most hated player on the Ottawa Senators around the league. And this team has a lot of guys. Just ask Kevin Bieksa about Nick Cousins, who maybe aren't that well liked. And like, he just has this natural ability to get under people's skin. I love it. I think he's a great talent, and he comes in at number 3 on our organizational value rankings. On the other side, no spoilers, Jake Sanderson, Brady Tkachuk. Why? That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, so when it comes to hiring, actually the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, and it helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for things like scheduling, screening, and messaging. That's all going to help you connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. So what are you waiting for? Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit so that your jobs will get more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Senators podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, Pilsy. By the way, Zach Benson, healthy scratch in game 2 of the season, getting underway.
I mean, but Ross, that Sabres franchise is at an interesting spot because they have so many prospects that should have a spot, but now they've also built their lineup with veterans that they need to help them make that push. So it's going to be an ongoing struggle for them to find a roster that fits.
I'm the guy dressed up at the funeral just waiting for the Sabres again because we know that trio, and I'd like the Sabres to drop out of the race and have the Senators and Wings kind of go at each other, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Boston Bruins. Let's look up, not down, Pilsy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And let's have the Sabres join the Montreal Canadiens in that bottom tier.
All right, now to our organizational value rankings. Number 2, it's Jake Sanderson. No surprise there, Pilsy. Why were you banging the table that this guy is number 2?
He's number 2 on the list, Ross, but he's a number 1 defenseman. And the Ottawa Senators haven't really had a true bona fide number 1 defenseman since Erik Karlsson left. I mean, that's not meant to disrespect Thomas Chabot, but
or Ron Hainsey.
Johnny
Oduya.
But
Erica Branson, Kevda.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, how long do you want to go? This is going to be a long episode if you want to name all the random
Cody
defensemen that have been here since. But
Dion Phaneuf.
We don't need to mention those guys anymore, Ross, because we got Jake Sanderson, an elite number 1 defenseman, only 22 years old. In 79 games last season, he had 10 goals, double digits. How are you? 28 assists, good for 38 points, plus 8 and only 23 penalty minutes. When they paired Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, they created a legit number 1 shutdown D pairing that can stop some of the best offenses in the league. But while having a shutdown pair like that, a player like Jake Sanderson, I would call a two-way defenseman. He's so silky and smooth. Sure, he's not going to be doing the dangles that Karlsson or Carter Yakimchuk gets away with, but he's transitioning that puck up the ice with some of the best in the league. And when you have a guy that can do that, he doesn't need to be the offensive flair because he's going to be setting up the Tim Stützles, the Brady Tkachuks, the Drake Bathersons, the Claude Giroux, the Josh Norrises. He's going to be setting those guys up, and that's what keeps the offense humming at a high rate. So Ross, for me, a lot of what I give credit for Jake Sanderson is his skating, because if you're going to succeed in this league as a young defenseman, you need to be able to skate, and Jake Sanderson's skating ability is amazing. I could watch this guy go and skate, no sticks, no puck, just have him out there skating. I would watch it.
I don't blame you for that either. He is just an electric talent, and it's all through his skating. Like Tim Stützle said in that mic'd up video last season, buddy, you're the fastest guy alive, and he knows it. He uses his speed. My favorite is when he takes the puck and rags it behind the net, and all of a sudden, boom, he decides which way he goes, and all of a sudden you blink and he's at the blue line already. He's a one-man zone exit, one-man zone entry, and he's so elite in transition, which is where the NHL is going further and further into. You have to be able to transport the puck with speed and be able to make plays, and he's so smart, so cerebral, but he does everything at full speed. He walks the line at full speed, and we know he's been working on his shot a ton over the last couple of years, and you see the jump from just 4 goals, more than doubling it, up to 10.
Yep.
You look at 156 games into his NHL career. By the end of this season, he's probably going to be 10th in Senators history in points by a defenseman.
Really?
Think about that for a second. He needs 28 points this season to pass Norm McIver for 10th all time.
I think that'll happen.
That's the type of talent that we're watching. He's going into his 3rd season.
Wow.
Incredible player, and there's a reason why he's at number 2. He's 6'2", 285 pounds, left shot defenseman. He started at number 4, was number 4 in 2021. I don't know if it was the injury that he suffered. He missed half of the season in 2022. That's a mea culpa on our part. He was number 7 in 2022, and then we fixed that real quick ahead of his rookie season and had him at number 3, and then this year at number 2. I should say after his rookie season, he was number 3 and then number 2 this year. 10 goals, 38 points in 79 games, a +8, the best for any defenseman on the Senators team. And those 23 PIMs include a fight against Matthew Tkachuk. Yep. So really 9 minor penalties for Jake Sanderson. Just a treat to watch.
Yeah, and he's only going to get better. Like that's the crazy thing. Like I think Ross,
I got a spicy over under for you.
Okay, hit me.
15 goals.
Yeah, I think he hits it. I thought you were about to say 50 points because that's where I was going, Ross. I think he can consistently be a 50-point guy. Now, some people might say, well, you look at the Cale Makars, the Quinn Hughes, they're getting way more than 50 points. That's fine. But Jake Sanderson is an elite two-way guy. Like his ability to defend and then chip in offensively like this is so clutch for this team to have a guy that they can pivot both ways like that. And he's going to be the guy in the number 1 power play. Thomas Chabot is now going to be the quarterback of the 2nd power play unit. And I think that's the right move because Jake Sanderson is going to set up all those talented players, just like I mentioned.
So if I set the over under at 15.5, I'm going to take the over on that. Last year, only 7 defensemen had more than 15 goals.
It's tough to score more than 15, Ross. I think 15 is a good over-under.
Why don't we just say 20?
No, I don't think Jake Sanderson can score 20 goals.
4 defensemen did. Darlene, Uyghur, Makar, and Yossi. That's it.
Uyghur got 20. Wow.
20 goals, 32 assists. Yeah, he's a stud.
Damn.
And then Bouchard had 18, Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes had 17. Those are basically the Norris candidates in that mix.
Honestly, yeah. I think 15 is a good number to shoot for.
Okay, well, let's see what Jake Sanderson has in store for his 3rd season in the league, the first year of his 8-year, $8.05 million extension. Say what you will about Pierre Dorion's time in Ottawa. Locking Jake Sanderson up when he did for how much he did is outrageous. This will be the best contract in the National Hockey League, I believe, for the next years to come. Maybe not as soon as this year. It's just starting. But as the cap goes up and he's in like year 3, and we're like, he's got 5 years left at $8 million, when all the other defensemen in this tier and in this category in their prime are making 10 plus.
Yep.
It's going to be pretty clear how well valued Jake Sanderson is at number 2 on our organizational value rankings.
And just quickly to finish off on that note, what I've been trying to get people on is don't look at the salary cap hit. We got to be paying attention to the percentages. Because that's
making me do more math.
Yeah, I'm the substitute math teacher here, Ross. Pop quiz. But that's what's going to be important because it's like inflation, right? Like 8 million now is going to be a different worth than 8 million in a couple of years. Like the percentage of what 8 million actually is going to go down and down and down and down, and that's going to provide so much value.
Where will Jake Sanderson's career take him? Maybe up to number 1, but he's not there yet. Who is next? Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and it's America's number 1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the page where you place your bets. Like let's say you're at work or you're at a wedding or something and you can't be watching the game, but you want to be on the action because you got a couple bets. Just go to FanDuel and you can follow along. And when you think you know how this game's going, you think the momentum's changing, you can place your bets at the same spot you're watching it. So you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can go to FanDuel right now. The NHL regular season has already started. So if you haven't got your futures in, get them in now.
Norris.
Jake Sanderson, Norris, Tim Stützle, the Art Ross, and Brady Tkachuk for the Hart. That's a nice little trifecta there. Go for that on FanDuel. Or, Ross, I would even start looking at little prop bets, over-unders on the win totals, things like that, because you don't want the Ottawa Senators to have an amazing season. Well, you do. But when they do, if you didn't have a future bet on good money at the start of the year, you're going to be kicking yourself. So don't do that. Get your future bets in right now at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com.
All right, Phil's the final segment on a Saturday morning show. We appreciate all the citizens for making us your first listen each and every day. Tomorrow, if you missed any of our organizational value rankings, I will be posting what will be, Pilsy, a 4-hour video just about, but it'll just be a premiere. If you missed anything, hop in the comments, say what up, and we will celebrate the start of the season by ranking every Ottawa Senators player.
And we are not strangers to doing 4 5-hour-long videos, Ross. We've done those in the past with our mock drafts, and we're doing it again here. So if you're looking for a little movie viewing on a nice October afternoon, check out Locked On Senators podcast.
I will start the video at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern. We will start the video and take it through the majority of the day. All right, Pilsy, we asked on Twitter at Sens Central, is Brady Tkachuk the most valuable player on the Sens? 80.5% agree that he is. So therefore, coming in at number one, it's Brady Tkachuk, 25-year-old left winger, 6'4", 212 pounds. It's his third consecutive season at number one on our organizational value rankings. And when he was at number 3 in 2021, the caveat was he didn't have a contract. So that put him down. And in 2020, he made his debut on this list at number 2. Why is Brady Tkachuk the most valuable player in the organization?
Well, first off, Ross, it's good to know the Sens Central citizens know puck. You love to see that, getting both of the polls correct, in my opinion. But why is he number one? Great question, Ross Levitan. So he is number one because, first off, he's wearing the C. That helps. He's a leader among men. He's leading this franchise. He's someone that is a modern day power forward, among one of the best of them, that can hit, get shots, can be a playmaker, scores goals, can fight, can lead a team. He comes from a hockey background, obviously the Tkachuk family, Matthew and Big Walt. Like, if you were building a hockey player in a lab, you would probably build something like Brady Tkachuk, unless you're a Montreal Canadiens fan and you're hoping to get a Jesper Kotkaniemi type instead. Like, that is the type of player you want here. 6'4", 212 pounds. Recently a father. He's got that new dad strength. Like, Brady Tkachuk is going to be unstoppable this year, Ross. And I don't love talking about it, but it's not nothing, so it's worth being mentioned. I think Matthew Tkachuk winning the Stanley Cup last year is a huge boost to what Brady Tkachuk will do this year, because he just saw his brother win it all after his brother's been in the playoffs, pretty much every single season. And Brady hasn't even sniffed. He hasn't even been close to being in the playoffs. So I think you get the new dad strength, you get that jealous little brother syndrome, and you get new owner, new management, new coach. Like, everything is aligning. The stars are aligning for Brady Tkachuk to blow the doors down and lead this team to the promised land, the playoffs.
So talented, so emotional on the ice, for better or worse. I think that's something Sens fans would like to see less of, where he's, getting in the mix after losing the game, where it's kind of like, you get a little bit of that little brother energy where it's like, you just lost, now I'm going to throw a bit of a tantrum. But I think he has gotten better at that over the course of the year. And I'd rather have to rein in my captain than 100%. Push him to go, than, rather than have to get him up for games. This guy's an absolute gamer. And if you ask anybody across the National Hockey League, which player that we haven't seen in the playoffs would you most think would thrive? Brady Tkachuk is basically
Everyone
the
says
unanimous answer.
Yep.
I think Rasmus Dahlin would be up there too. He'd be a
Meh.
fun playoff guy, but not even close to Brady Tkachuk, who we said would go number 1 in a 2018 redraft. Of course he would. Now, when you look at what he brings, he makes his teammates better. That's one thing about his game I think is underappreciated. His playmaking is unbelievable. This guy can dish the puck, and I think he's still scratching the surface, right? He's in the prime of his career now, 25 years old, dad strength, jealous brother. I can't wait to see what Brady Tkachuk has in store this season.
And Ross, there's so much that he does that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Like, there's probably so many phantom assists that he really should be unofficially credited for when he's in front of the net. Like, the chaos he's causing. We mentioned his dimensions, 6'4", 212. Like, goalies are having a hard time seeing around this guy. And I think a lot of people around the league kind of give him a hard time. Well, yeah, he gets a lot of shots on goal, but they're just useless jam plays where he's just jamming there. But he's creating chaos. He's creating rebounds. And if you're a defenseman or a goalie and Brady Tkachuk is in front of the net right by the crease, you have to pay attention to him. And that causes a lot of open ice for teammates to get the puck and use the puck if it's in that area. So I just, like, we could go on and on and on about great things. And great guy, joined the Locked On Senators podcast, one of our best interviews ever. If you haven't watched that yet, you're crazy, but go check it out now. Brady Tkachuk's the man. Like we could have just done that, Ross. Brady Tkachuk, number 1. He's the man. Thank you very much. Roll the credits.
Do you want to feel old?
No.
Oh, okay. Then I won't bring up my stat then.
Well, you're older than me, actually, so sure.
Brady Tkachuk is 7th all-time in goals by an Ottawa Senator.
I can't decide if that's awesome or not.
He's 18 goals behind Danny Heatley.
Ooh, well, yeah, wow.
So how many goals do you think Brady Tkachuk's going to get this year? Is 30 fair?
No, 30 is definitely fair. Yep.
He will be 4th all-time in Sens history in goals if he gets 30 this year. He's 28 behind Marian Hossa for number 4.
Wow.
Like, he is climbing up the ranks. He's 9th all-time in points. And let's say he gets another 70. Let's be conservative. He had 74 last year. Let's say he gets 70 this year.
Sure.
He's going to be 5th all-time in points.
What if he gets
Sens history.
What if he gets 30 goals for 4 more years? So add 120 goals to his total. Where does that put him?
120 goals. He would be at 282. He'd be 2nd behind Alfie.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've decided that's awesome, actually.
Yeah, well, it is. Yep, you're right. And he's 100 points away from being 5th all-time in points as well. Like, we are watching a franchise legend grow right in front of our eyes. And I just hope he's a Senator for life. And for that to happen, the team has to have success.
Yep.
It just, change is inevitable in the hockey world. And when teams fail, more change comes. I think he wants to be in Ottawa. I don't think he has that same itch as his brother to get out of Canada or get out into a war market, all that. I think he wants to have a legacy. And he has the opportunity to go down as one of the greatest Ottawa Senators of all time. And I think that should be the carrot along with the Stanley Cup that Brady Tkachuk should be focused on in his final 4 years of this contract and hopefully many more years after that. I'm spin zoning it. The fact they got him to lock up 7 years under the previous ownership, I really think that by the time he's due for a next contract, things are going to be so player-friendly in Ottawa that I think he'd be crazy to leave as long as they have success on the ice.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. And I think the difference too, Ross, is Matthew Tkachuk, I feel like he wanted to go somewhere where he could make more of a statement and didn't have to deal with as much unfair criticism. Like, I feel like in Calgary, there's a lot of unfair criticism towards him. And he knew if he went to Florida, he wouldn't have to deal with that. And you could see the makings of a good team there in Florida. They just needed someone that could bring what Matthew Tkachuk brings. Whereas Brady Tkachuk is the guy here. Like there's nothing in his way in Ottawa. And I think he's the perfect player, the perfect fit. And we need to see this guy in the playoffs.
We certainly do. Brady Tkachuk comes in at number 1 on our organizational value rankings. If you have any qualms or concerns or comments, or if you want to give us a pat on the back, you can do that in the comments below. Pillsy, any final thoughts going into the final preseason game of this extended time before we get the real puck drop in 5 days from now at the CTC? We will be at the Glebe Central Pub starting at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The buses leave just after 5:40. If you don't have a ticket, we'll see you at the game because the buses from the Glebe Central Pub are sold out. Both buses, 2 buses, the wheels on the bus go round and round. Can't wait to get to the CTC.
Heck yeah. Final thoughts for me. You mentioned it's the final preseason for the Sens today. However, it was the first preseason game for the Belleville Senators last night. And Ross, this is how you know all is right in the world. Yet again, another win for the Senators organization over the Montreal Canadiens organization. 3-2 Belleville Senators win over the Laval Rocket. Thank you very much.
All right. With that, we say goodbye. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be mentioning it occasionally on Twitter at Sens Central, and we'll break it all down on Monday. We've also got a, how do I say this? A contentious guest.
It's going to be
Monday.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that and more. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for watching, listening, engaging with this bonus Saturday show. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.